I wanted to have my first episode be something that was extremely difficult for me to talk about. Not just because it's hard, but because it felt like the right way to open up this entire venture. A lot of people today are open about their depression. There are a lot of celebrities who discuss it. Um, in the YouTube community, a lot of YouTubers have come out and said, they have battled with it because of the pressures of doing something like YouTube that requires you to constantly be producing. I am thankful to be friends with a woman named Kathleen Meredith and Raven Batty, and they have produced. They have two ventures. They have Fat Girl Stance, which is a body positive movement for big girls, plus size girls. It's body positivity through dance and other uplifting things, and that's been huge. And then they started the Naked Podcast, and I'm the editor for the Naked Podcast. So they kind of give me a punch sheet of this is where we want the cuts, basically. And then I go in there and I do them and, fix audio and do all of that thing before they send it out to the world. And editing that podcast, I was hearing so many of the conversations were things that I was also going through with, especially body positivity, which for me has always been a problem because I've always been some form of fat or big or whatever you want to call it. Listening to them, I'm thinking, well, that sounds like me. That applies to me too. Well, so does that. Geez. But of course, I'm a guy. So thinking about that, thinking about what seems to be missing for someone who's gay, who's black, who's overweight, there seems to be something missing in that sort of space. All of those things plus depression. So gay, overweight, black, and dealing with depression, there felt like there was something that could be put there. At least editing the Naked Podcast, listening to my friends talk amongst themselves, talk to other people, and have these wonderful, powerful discussions with women and some men as well. I listen to that and I go, gee, I love this. But they're in New York, I'm in LA, so they send me the file. So I'm not there when they're recording. I'm not able to weigh in. I can't get on the mic and weigh in. And I'm like, oh, these conversations are wonderful. God, it would be great to talk about some of these things and give my perspective. And I'm the kind of person who, a million great ideas, but the actual execution falls by the wayside because I lose confidence in myself to go through it. And then I tell myself it's all bullshit, and then I don't do it. So I would keep having that thought, but I wouldn't really do anything about it. And then I was on the phone with my mother. My mother has very good intentions, though sometimes she is completely oblivious to how she comes across, what kind of statements she makes, and how they can be interpreted incorrectly because she's so emphatic on what she says, and this is what I think and this is what's right, and I'm right, I believe this, and so therefore if you call her and you say Mom, that ain't right, that's not, you can't, but that's not what I meant, and then you can get into an argument. And so a conversation I had with her not too long ago was, in essence, you should get your voice out there, regardless of what it is, whether it's something on YouTube, whether, videos, talking, whatever, your story should be heard. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. And I think we, us children, there seems to be a natural resistance to ignore good advice from your parents. I grew up with my aunt. I didn't grow up with my mother. My relationship with my mother has been kind of up and down, and I'll eventually get to those stories. But my relationship, has taken work to kind of build back up again, and it's been built up a few times. And, we're again in the process of building it up, building it up. And so taking advice from my mother, it's like swallowing really awful medicine, especially when she's ramming a point home. And you're like, I just don't want to hear anymore. Just please shut up. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear. And she's going, and you could do this. My mother is super loud. If you've ever met me, I can unleash my voice and bring in the noise. But she will come in there, she will cut across. She's not a singer, but her voice is designed in such a way that if she were a singer, it would cut across an orchestra like nobody's business, because it will cut across a room full of people talking in a way that you will hear nothing but her. Even in a loud restaurant, she will cut straight across. So, you're getting this right in your ear, just, And so the natural resistance to ignore a parent, plus the fact that this parent is effectively yelling at you, not intending to yell at you, but she's yelling at you. The natural thing for me is to ignore everything and be like, oh, she crazy. Like, ignore everything. But, when I stop and kind of digest the conversation, the good advice that fell out was, get your story out there. And so I sent a text message to my friend Kathleen. It was like, down the road, I want to talk to you about telling my story. And she wrote back, she's like, I'm totally on board. It's like in all caps. It's 2018. It's December 2018 when I'm recording this. A little over a year ago, maybe just about a year, I finally realized that something was wrong. I had been having very bad mood swings. I would feel okay, and then I would feel angry, then I would feel very sad, cry for no reason, very random, to the point where it was hard to work. It was difficult to concentrate on work. And some days I would have to call out sick just to try and get my mind back in order. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought, well, this is probably some kind of depression. But I don't know, and I don't want to talk to a doctor because the doctor's going to tell me, they're going to tell me all sorts of horrible things about myself. And I've said before in previous years to some people that I might be depressed, and it's always been laughed off or pushed off, or, oh, well, you just need to cheer up, or you just need to do this, or just eat this kind of food, or some other bullshit recommendation that doesn't solve the problem. I think that out of everything was really what I was most afraid of, that I would reach out to a therapist and say, this is what I'm dealing with, and that they were going to tell me it was nothing. I was afraid that someone wouldn't listen to me. And so as I do with a lot of things, um, I said, well, I'm not going to reach out because I don't want to get hurt. And that's kind of a recurring thing in my life. So many things I haven't reached for because I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be disappointed. Um, you know, I don't want to fail. And it's, as we find out as we roll along through life, it's failure that pushes us forward, because we learn from the failures. At least we should learn from the failures. Um, but I have this risk averse thing, when it comes to living my best life. And so I get scared of it, and I have a natural tendency to pull away. Um, Even recording this podcast right now, here and now, sitting at my desk looking at GarageBand on my screen, there's a lot of me that is wanting to do this and tell you this story, and there's part of me that is wincing and wants to turn away and click the stop button and go look at videos on YouTube or something. It's just a thing that I do, and I have to combat it. But with going to get therapy, going to get help, seeing if there's truly something wrong, I shied away from that idea. And I would talk to friends, my good friends, and they would say, Josh, we think something's up. You should get help. And I would say, yeah, I'm going to look into it. And then I would just not look into it. Prior to last year, I would note that my mental health seemed to be getting worse. I was more consistently unhappy. I was more comfortable staying in, not going out, not talking to and interacting with a whole lot of people. Um, if I could stay in and order food in, that was better than going outside or going to the store. I started sealing myself in my own little universe. I was letting demons from the past swell up in my mind. Um, Things from childhood, getting teased a lot. Being kind of the outcast because I was always some sort of different. Either I talked funny, or my clothes weren't what was on and cracking back in the day, or I was the teacher's pet, or letting that stuff seep back in, feeling like the outcast, feeling like a failure, thinking about things family members said about me decades ago, shit that I grew up with, growing up with my aunt, and feeling like I was always being judged more harshly than her own son or other people in the family. Thinking about always being shamed because I was overweight, problems I was having as an adult, just all, financial issues. All of these things would seep up and start to swirl in my mind. And it began happening more often. This has been something that I've kind of always had, sort of this tendency to play back the expression that I've heard someone say, play back old tapes. You go take the old, the age of the cassette. cassette and records and shit. So for me, it's play back these old tapes. Maybe for you young cats, it's play back the old MP3s. Um, but I go back and dig out all these old tapes, mental tapes, um, of snapshots of things that people have said and done to me, that hurt me in some way or made me feel lesser than. And I go pull these old tapes out and put them in and I play them and I play them over and over again. And I've always had a tendency to do that, and not let things go, but kind of, it is very much like handling physical media, like handling cassettes or, videotapes, audio tapes, whatever. Like, you record the thing and then you put it on a shelf. And then at some point, you go on that shelf, you pull it down, you put it in the player, and then you watch it. And so I had a tendency to do that. And so as I got older, um, I would do it more and more, and it was a gradual thing. And so by, about a year ago, this was happening all of the time. I was ripping those tapes off of those shelves, and now there's a whole warehouse full of all these tapes to pull, from all sorts of times in my life that I took something to heart, something negative, and I took it to heart. And I recorded that on a tape and put it on the shelf. And so I just kept going through all of these old memories, and even the people who did the shit to me, they don't, they don't even remember. They haven't thought about it in forever. In the first iteration of recording this episode, I attempted to tell a story about a boy in junior high who ganged up with some other boys, during my PE class, and they decided they were going to pull my shirt off because I was a chubby kid. I had chubby boy boobs, and they were going to pull my shirt off and embarrass me in front of all the other kids. And this boy, who was kind of the ringleader, was considered in the school. He's in my yearbook as the like super attractive, like best smile. And all the girls thought he was so, fine. Oh, he fine. And I, of course, being the little gay kid I thought he was fine too. But, of course, I couldn't say that. The long short of it is, he got the kids together. I was at the water fountain. They pulled not only my outer shirt, but my undershirt, because I always wore an undershirt, because going back to my body insecurity, my aunt always told me to wear two shirts, to kind of, they'll hide, what she told me, and she said it once, and it always stuck with me. And she didn't, I've had to work it out. She didn't mean it as a negative, but she said to me once, you wear two shirts and they'll kind of hide and she called them breasts. And that was like, she called, my chubby boy boobs breasts. And she said wearing an extra shirt will hide them. That sealed in the fact that even today, it's hard for me to wear only one shirt. And trust me, I'm a fat guy and I got some big old man titties. They're way bigger than they were when I was in junior high. But the long story short, the guys surrounded me. They got both shirts. They pulled them off. And now I'm topless in front of all these kids. Now, if I had have had more self-confidence, I would have been like, man, give me my fucking shirt back. And, it would have been whatever. And I would have been teased for a little bit and it would have died. But the soul crushing that did to me, and I relived the moment for weeks. Didn't that get written to a mental tape and stored, and it was pulled off of the shelf on the regular? I reviewed that over and over and over because they pulled my shirt off, and so many kids were laughing. I ran, and then they chased me, and like we ran around part of the school, and I was being chased before they gave me my shirt back. And I was running away, like with no shirt. And a bunch of kids were chasing after me. And finally, I got my shirt back. So I played that over and over again. You know, you might hear that and go, that Josh, it's terrible. And it does suck. It does suck. It's not a great memory for me. But that happened when I was in junior high. That was the late 90s. It's 2018. And if I look at that now, while it's a bad story, do you think, I'm not going to say his name, I remember it, but I'm not going to say his name, but that boy who is now a grown ass man, if I were to meet with him and say, do you remember what you did to me? You fucking asshole. Do you remember what you did to me in junior high? I'd be like, huh? First of all, who are you? Who are you? And how did you get? How did you find out where I live? He wouldn't fucking remember because it meant it was a brief moment in time for him and he moved on with his life. And it's only me who is punishing me. So I tell that story to give you the idea of what I do to myself. I take things and punish myself over and over again for things that happened in the past that I cannot change, that if it was done to me, the people more than likely have fucking forgot about it because it was decades ago. And they're like, Josh, I don't even remember that. I don't even remember. Or things that I've done to myself, things I've fucked up, fucking up my financial picture and my financial future, fucking my credit over, getting a car repossessed. These are things that swirling I talked about. These are the things that would swirl around in my mind. And I would review and analyze and overanalyze and beat myself up for, to the point that would put me in a stupor where the only thing I could do was cry and stare at the floor or the wall. And my partner would come in and be like, babe, what's wrong? What can I do? And no amount of love that he could pour in was enough to quell that pain. Because if you don't get help, for it, that pain becomes all consuming. And you get to the point you enjoy being there. And I had gotten to that point where I enjoyed being miserable. It felt more comfortable to put on that coat of misery and wear it. Gabrielle Union, one of the early episodes of the Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett Smith, her mother, and I think that episode was only Jada and Gabrielle Union, because there was that beef that people were saying they had, and they both were like, we don't even know what happened, and like they squashed the whole thing, and like they got on good terms, and that was a beautiful episode. I love watching that series on Facebook. And Gabrielle Union said just that her, feeling bad and getting down on herself, it was like wearing a coat. And that coat is so warm and so comfortable and you just get wrapped up in it and you don't want to take it off. And that's exactly what I found myself doing. And that was kind of the first, it was around the time that I saw that talk between Jada Pinkett Smith and Gabrielle Union that I heard that statement. I was like, ooh, I do that. What is that? And it does, it becomes comfortable. You don't want to leave it. I bought Jennifer Lewis's book. Because it had been out a while, and I thought, well, Jennifer Lewis. I'm like, Jackie's back. Like, okay. Like, what's this about? Her book was transformative because mental health issues, a lot of them can kind of show themselves in similar ways or parallel ways. And so there were certain aspects of what she was talking about. I was like, oh, yeah, I can identify with that. Okay, I'm starting to smell something. And it was after finishing her book that I actually went out and reached out and got a therapist. Now, I'm looking for another one currently, but I reached out to get the help and start the journey of figuring out what it is I need to get better and what steps do I need to take when the depression comes in, because it's not just that I work myself into this depression. A lot of high stress with money, stress with life, having this kind of constant thing that I'm not quite where I want to be in terms of, what I'm doing in life and what I'm working on. And my day job is kind of soul crushing for me, and I want to be doing something more creative. There are things that happen that can trigger it. When something happens that's stressful, I have to stop myself from overreacting, because if left unchecked, I will. You can drop a fork, and if I'm in the wrong mood, my partner has done. We're in an old apartment, and if you drop something on the floor, the lady downstairs can hear it, and he'll drop something, and I'll just go at him like, "What? You told you can't do that, man." And it's like I have to pull myself back, breathe, think about the response, check myself heavily, and then say something. And I have to, when the stress is ramped up, I have to do it even more. Current therapist has given me things to work through. I was given the task of kind of working back through old childhood wounds. And I had to go back. I'm going to tell you, when you go back and you look at all of the old wounds, you gotta open every fucking door. I talked about them tapes. For me, that's how I think of them. You might think of it as opening an old chest. However, for me, I need to visualize it. For me, I had to sit in that warehouse and go through all them old goddamn tapes, all of them, blow the dust off, and play them and actually analyze, what is this? Is this isn't worth hashing over? And 9 times out of 10, the stuff that was there, it's not worth hashing over. You throw it out. The other bigger events, I had to look at them and look at the person who did it, and then look at their life and look at the situation through their eyes. I growing up with my aunt was, there were things with money in the household, and she was trying to take care of me. I had to look at my childhood with my aunt on things where I'm like, but see, she did blah, 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 and that I didn't, that hurt me, and I didn't feel right. And I had to go back and look at those times from her perspective. And I had to see that, she was self employed, and she had to, her siblings kind of gave her supplemental funds to raise me. And that was, something she had to swallow her pride to take that. Um, and she was doing the best she could at the time with the resources she had. And I had to look at that. My mother, I wasn't raised by my mother. When I would go and interact with my mother, those were not always positive interactions. There was some tough shit in there. There was some really tough shit. And I had to look at my mother's life from her perspective. She graduated from college, but my grandfather, her father, was not, he was not someone who should have been a parent. And my mother got treated, of two siblings, she got treated the worst. She was sort of the outcast, and she was perceived by other families, oh, she's just, really loud, and she's tomboyish, and she's bullish and hard-headed. I had to see her life through her eyes. All of this was done to forgive those people, and it's not for them, it's for me. Forgiving them lets me be free. That shit's the past. It's there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do to fix it. There's nothing they can do to fix it. We have to exist here and now, today. And it's what I've said to my mother, building my relationship back up with her. It's like, Mom, you know what? I love you. There are things we disagree on. I love you. It doesn't mean I don't love you. And, what's in the past, she feels a lot of heavy guilt for not being there. And, I understand. But for me, that's just the past. And I don't want to live there. I don't want to live a relationship there. I want to live my relationship from today forward. So a lot of those old tapes, they got thrown out. All that analyzing old shit, they got thrown out. Now, I'm not perfect. There are other things I still have a tendency to beat myself up for, my weight being one of them. Looking in the mirror, not having a positive self-image. It's so hard for me to look in the mirror, look at myself. If I'm not wearing clothing, even when I'm wearing clothing, I have a very bad habit of picking myself apart, mentally telling myself I'm ugly. And I will tell you, when you do that, the shit, there's science on it. There are tons of papers on it. How you perceive yourself is powerful. I'm working very hard to stop doing it. It's not easy for me. I have a partner. We are domestic partners. We're not married. We're domestic partners. We did it for health insurance and shit like that. But we're together. We're committed to one another, and we want to be together for the long haul. As long and far as life will take us, we want to be together. And so I got the man. But getting together with someone else isn't going to solve all your problems. And I'm in a relationship, and it doesn't solve all my problems, because I have to love myself too. And that's what I've found over decades so difficult to do, is to love myself. And so, I'll come in, take a shower, and I come into the room, I'm butt ass naked. And he's like, babe, you're so beautiful. And I'm like, ugh, I'm wet, I'm, fat, I got shit jiggling. And he's like, no, babe, no, you're beautiful. It's slowly becoming easier to take that, and not turn it into a negative man. Oh, you're just saying that because he has to say it, or you're just saying it because, meh. It's a fucking journey, and I am thrilled that this journey includes this podcast. I'm excited to tell more stories, and I'm excited to see where it goes. If you enjoyed what you heard, you can reach out to me and tell me what you really think online. You can reach me on Facebook at This Is Josh Pod. You can reach me on Twitter at This Is Josh Pod. Yes, I got the same at tag thing for both of those social media platforms. I'm a lucky man. You can also email me at thisisjoshpodcast@gmail.com, or you can visit my website, which is thisisjoshpodcast.com. Do you see a theme here? I made it very easy for you to remember where you can find me online. So reach out to me, say hi, say what's up, say you love the podcast, say you hated it. Haters, lovers, all welcome. If you have a topic that you'd like me to discuss on this podcast, let me know. If you have stories that you'd like to share, I would love to hear from you. So until next time, I don't have a closer. I really should have a closer. See, folks, not perfect. Absolutely not perfect, but I'm working on it. Thanks for listening.